Good evening, everyone, and welcome to BT's Fly Tying Friday. Tonight, the 31st of May, 2024, we're going to be at work just tying some flies and chatting with all of you. And the weekly tip will be a little bit more on a new anchor system for a couple of different materials. But we're the Beattys, and I don't need to add someone side by side because she's right here and feeling very good after recovering from some surgeries. But you about ready to go to work?
Yeah, let's kind of describe what we're going to do you think?
Good idea. You go right ahead.
Oh, well, thank you. I don't want to talk too much tonight, though, because my jaw still does get sore. But tonight's going to be a little more casual. We're going to be kind of at work, our at work routine, both of us on the vise on a split screen. And the idea is that we want to be real casual. We want you to ask questions. If you have something we've done in the past or something you've seen, let's talk about it. Or if you want us to demonstrate something, we're willing to put down what we're working on.
Maybe. If I'm in the middle of wrapping hackle, probably not.
Well, you could finish wrap. You don't wrap hackle. I wrap
That's
hackle.
right. You do that. You do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of where we are tonight. So shall we get started?
Might as well.
Oh, and just feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question or a comment or you want to know what we're doing. And I guess we'll this is how we tie commercially. This is what we do.
Yep.
What do you got there?
Before we leave, though, I wanted to show the last day on the calendar that my buddy Paul in Australia sent to me. And this is a calendar of pictures, artwork pictures of Australian pioneers. So anyway, that's what I've been looking at above my desk all month. And the next one, which will be tomorrow, is another pioneer one. And you seem to have a fascination for Clydesdale horses, and that's the one I'll be looking at for the next month. So thanks to my buddy Paul in Australia. And you ready to get started, dear?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Now we're in a side by side. Gretchen will be on the right-hand side of the screen, and I've already tied the body that she has there in her vise, so she can put the body on that and the hackle. And on my side, I am going to start tying the next body that I will pass off to her.
So this is the way that we used to tie. So I wasn't sure I could actually do wings and tails anymore. I tied so much hackle, but I'm going to be putting on the peacock. So just start. We always start at the fly with the body material, or I started my part of the fly with that. And you know what? I forgot to get peacock. So let's go over here to our peacock store.
Let me, oh, okay, you've got it. Okay, good.
Yeah. This is a real scraggly looking one, but I think I can get some good enough stuff off there to use.
Yeah, just make sure they're big enough for a size 12. And it looks like you've got some there. It should be pretty good for that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. They're pretty, I'm really not sold on them.
Okay, well, anyway, over on my side of the screen, I've just applied some white thread, starting at the 1/3 mark, back from the hook eye. That's where my wings will go. And right there in the middle, it's where I want to tie in the tail. And I'll slip over here and get some tail material, which will be some of this deer hair. Get a bundle of that out. And it's got just a slight crook in it, not much. You may not even be able to see it, but I can. So I'll take my fingernail and thumb and just kind of straighten that out just a little bit. There we go. That'll be better. And on my way back to the vise, I'm going to
we got something in the chat. Do you want to see what that is?
Yeah, I'll take a look.
Me too?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just getting the trash out of my
Oh yeah, my visor. These are Optivision, I think it's called. I've had them for so long.
let's go to a full screen here.
I think they're called Optivision.
Okay, full.
But they're optical quality. That's the most important thing. And actually, these are what some dentist, well, my dentist uses more than this, but I think it isn't my dentist, it's the dermatologist uses this, so you can get several different strengths. So I think it's Optivision, Alan. I think that's what it's called. I
Okay.
wonder if it says it on it. Let me take a look. Oh, here we go. Optivisor. Optivisor. That's all it says. Optivisor, Optivisor. So that should, and I think they still make them.
Thank you, Gretchen.
You bet.
Okay, over here on my part, I've tied on the tail material. I'm getting ready to get rid of the waste.
This is the peacock I ended up with. This is a lot better than the stuff I was looking
Yeah,
at.
that looks a lot better, at least from here it does.
Yeah, this is pretty good
It's full
stuff.
enough to be using a 12 anyway.
Hey, I'm so good I could.
Yeah, I know that. Anyway, let's get some calf tail. I wanted to show you something about the calf tail. Let me come back here real quick. And I don't know, okay. Hoping you can see that. You got to watch the calf tail. I have a really great calf tail here. The hair is nice and straight. And I think you can probably see that it looks pretty straight there. But over here on one side, if you're not watching what's happening, there's a little curl showing up there. And that little curl in the calf tail, you can't take it out. You're stuck with it or you throw it away. And I'll be throwing it away when I get to that part. But for now, I'm going to take my hair out of this part of the tail. I'll get back over here and do that.
I'm tying this so that it in the back one curves forward. And then I'll do the opposite. I kind of like to do that.
I'm cleaning my waist out on my way back to the vise. And we'll just put that into the stacker.
Oh dear, this is split. That's not good. There we go. That's better.
Now we'll see if those.
Now I'm going to change to my black thread. Take a couple wraps over this,
I'm going to measure my wings per length,
trim
so
it
it's
off.
equal to the shank.
Gretchen, is that a single fly or single ply floss that you're doing in the red?
This is a stretchy nylon.
Ah.
You can see it kind of when it's not stretched out, how loose it is. I don't know if I'm really showing that.
Yeah,
very-
that showed up pretty good against your shirt. When
And
you
then-
pull on it, then it really flattens out into a really nice
I
floss.
used to use the Danville single strand floss, but then when we found this, I started using it because it's a little easier to use. But we used to order the Danville without wax, and we would use that. But now I do this.
I'm going to go from the center of the hook here at what I call a pull point, and just to keep my hair from accidentally slipping down on the underside of the hook, I just throw a quick loop in there from the center of the hook that will anchor that up on top so that it does not slip down on the sides of the hook. Doesn't really make any difference, I guess, but I don't like the way it looks. And when you're sending out a box of flies to a customer, to a fly shop, wherever, you want everything in the box to look the same as the one next to it. Wrapping a thread dam in front. And I'll just kick it around so I can see what I'm doing and divide those wings. And take a loop around the offside wing, a second loop, set it in place. Get the near side wing, couple of turns, set it in place. Now we're ready to go.
Notice how when I move to the front, I pull way back to try to cover up that far side.
And Gretchen, I have a question.
Okay.
Do you ever wrap the peacock under the red thread for the body and then change to the black thread so that you don't have to tie it on again?
Yes, I do. Depending on the circumstances, but yes.
I put that next fly for you up on the computer, Gretch.
Okay. I get a little neater transition when I do it the way I just did it, but when I'm tying a whole bunch of them, if things are going good, I will just I didn't do a very good job on that, tying that hackle off.
Al?
Yeah.
I just started using white thread, and I think it's really great because, you know, the color doesn't bleed through and whatever. And I noticed you're using it. When do you and how often do you go to a white thread?
We almost always use thread that will match the product that we're dealing with or what the customer orders. And you can't believe all the variations that we've received over the years and requests for colors of thread. But what we do on all of our hair wing plies that involves calf tail, unless the customer requests something different, we tie them with white. So you can see, well, here's this one right here. You can see they're nicely divided without any black or red wraps around the base of that wing to, well, I don't know, we think it detracts from the overall appearance. And you have to decide whether you agree with that or not, but that's what we do.
Thank you.
I don't know if I've never checked it out, but I don't know if the black thread. Well, let's see if what am I thinking here? Oh no, what I want to say is I don't know if the peacock would show through or change the color of the red stretchy yarn when it gets wet. Do you know the answer to that, Al?
Right off the top of my head, no.
Does anybody have a clue about that?
I mean, a lot of times the colors will show through the peacock when it's wet.
Yeah.
And but I can't tell you in this specific whether it would or it wouldn't. And
Well, yeah, what I'm saying is, will the peacock show through the stretchy nylon?
yeah, I don't know. It's I know on thread, often like a red thread under the peacock, what it ends up doing is, believe it or not, it's pretty tough to tell the color of the thread once it gets good and wet. It's, you know, it's if it's a red thread, it's going to be very dark because it'll be a lot darker than the red that went on the hook. And I'm not seeing a problem with it showing through the peacock. But if I did something like shall we say, a fluorescent green, I'd probably have a problem.
You're saying it backwards. It's not whether the thread shows through the peacock. It's whether if I were to not tie the peacock off
Oh,
and just wrap the thread over it, will the thread,
my mistake. My mistake. You guys
will
got
the
a great answer.
peacock flow, show through?
You got a great answer to a non-question.
Yeah,
In other words, I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. What else is new, huh?
yeah.
Okay, well, I'm cleaning some under fur out of this calf tail. I decided he didn't need to see me go off to the waste bin. You know what I was doing.
Now I just tied this one. I don't know if anybody was watching, but I just tied this one, wrapping over the peacock. So I'm going to tie this fly and then I'm going to make it wet and we'll see what it looks like, just for fun.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, why not? We're just kind of playing around today anyway. And
I want you to notice that I'm setting the hair for the wing on the side of the hook nearest me, and I'm taking a couple of loose turns. I pull that wing to the length that I want it to be. Then I go ahead and apply pressure and just roll that bundle of hair up on top. Trim off the waist, and I want you to notice that I'm laying my scissors in flat along the shank, pulling that hair back at about a 45-degree angle, so I get a really severe cut, and that will it will blend the waist from the wing into the waist from the tail and make for a smoother underbody so that Gretchen doesn't have as bad a mess to clean up when she gets to her part of the fly. Now I'm going to leave my thread again hang in the center, and I'm going to pull the hair bundle up, take a loop under, go back to the center and anchor. And all that does is pull that hair up so that it does not slip down on the side of the hook, either side. Now let's just get the thread right up to the back of the wings, and I'll separate them and wrap between the two. Come over to the far side wing, 2, 3 turns, anchor that wing in place with a tight wrap. Same thing on the near side, 2, 3, pull it into place and bind it in place. And now this goes off to Gretchen, except I see I got a couple of wild hairs here. I'll save her from having to trim them off by coming in here and cutting them off. Got a
Gretchen.
couple.
Gretchen. When you're production tying, for your hackle, do you mostly use saddle?
Yes. Almost, I mean, that's what I use when I'm tying production. Absolutely. I can get several, some of those nice long whiting saddles. I can get quite a few flies out of one feather. I'm going to go put this in water.
Okay, you'll be back. Let me, I'll get started on this one, then I'll switch over to a full screen so we can see what it looks like. I'm just starting my thread again at the 1/3 point, wrapping to the back of the hook, get to the end of the shank there, and back in about halfway up and stop. That's where I'll tie on my tail material. And get a bundle of hair out here. And I'll clean the waist out on my way back to the vise.
I don't see anything through there.
Yeah, that was just red, wasn't it?
What do you mean?
The red, you were talking about the red thread through the peacock?
You keep saying that. It's the peacock showing through the red thread.
Oh, okay. Oh, where you buried it from one to the end of the other? Yeah,
Yes.
got it. I find now.
Okay,
Now
I do not see any sign of it at all.
you want
Is
me
there
to
any kind of a
full screen
lump?
you?
Pardon?
Gretchen, is there any kind of a lump from?
No, not
Okay.
really. Not really. Right. You can, it looks a little draggled.
Okay, well, I had it up there full
Oh.
screen for you, so,
Oh, full screen for me. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll put it right here.
okay, let me go back to full screen for you.
Okay, there it is. I don't know if you can tell.
No, not really.
What I need is a green screen behind it, I guess.
I got one of those here. I had one of those here. Well, here it is.
But it's interesting, the peacock looked
Here's a green-
really good before I put it in water, and now it just doesn't look all that good.
Peacock never does look, peacock looks buggy after it gets in the water.
Yeah. And I try so hard to make it pretty, I guess that's kind of a waste, huh?
Yeah, the pretty peacock is for the customer.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, let me get back to the split screen there. All right.
Got it.
And I'm back on mine and I will tie
My
one for the,
question recently about, do we ever tie two hackles at the same time instead of one and then the other? And that question probably primarily relates to when I'm using a grizzly and a brown hackle. But there are times when I use two hackles of the same color because my feathers aren't long enough. I get down to the end of two of them. So the answer is yes. It's a little trickier to wrap them at the same time. And it helps if the feathers are the same, they look the same, they act the same, they're kind of the same, they're, maybe from the same pelt. If you have two feathers that are really different, it's hard to wrap them at the same time. So It takes a little more skill. And I don't remember who asked that question. It was something that came.
Over this last season, it's come up about 4 times.
I do like to wrap them together. Another time that I do it is if you take a look at this feather, it's pretty dark. So sometimes when I have a really dark feather, I will tie a lighter feather. Excuse me, I'm struggling a little with my voice. I'll tie a lighter feather with it like this so that I don't know if you can really see that. You really can't see that, but I'll tie these together to kind of show you how I do that when I get to the hackle. So I'll tie 2 hackles on at the same time.
So we can take it, Gretchen, that you do an Adams that way too?
Yes.
One of the things about the Adams, though, and anytime you mix a grizzly and brown, you just don't mix grizzly and brown. You mix for what looks like grizzly and brown mix. And it depends on the color of the brown, how many turns of grizzly you have to wrap in relation to the number of brown so that it turns out looking like it's an even mix. I know that sounds crazy, but we went through earlier this year, it was the end of last year, we went through one of these Friday fly tying clinics on the mixing of hackles. And what we like is when we have medium brown and a fairly well barred grizzly, we like to have what is about a 60-40 with 60% grizzly and 40% brown mix. And the reason for that is you don't want to do an even mix because the brown is I don't know the right words for it. You artist type people, yeah, it's a more dominant color than the grizzly, which is just a little bit off of white. And so it doesn't take very many turns more of brown to just overpower the grizzly to the point where you can almost not see it. So when we're mixing grizzly and brown, we're mixing them, and it's almost in every fly occurrence as to what do you do with the 2 feathers you've got in your hand as to how light or dark the brown is, how light or dark the grizzly is. I know that's an extra long explanation for something that you probably don't care one whit about.
What I would do in that case, tying commercial, is I would probably tie on 2 grizzlies and wrap a brown and a grizzly together, and then I'd come through with the second grizzly and kind of put it in there to make the grizzly show up more. So I might use 3 hackles. We have one customer that's basically what I have to do for him because he wants so much more grizzly. It's the only way I can do it. And it takes a lot more time.
But then we charge accordingly.
We charge accordingly. That's right. And he likes them done the way he likes them done. And he likes it very heavily hackled. Very heavily hackled. So, you do what the customer wants. When I'm tying commercial, this is the way I tie off my thread. I don't know if you brought it. I just took a big loop and brought it here in front of the wing. And then I'll just take my black and I just wrap over several times. This is the quickest way I've found to do it. Cut that off. And now I'm good to go. So I go back here. And lost my peacock. What did I do? Oh, there it is. Tie on my peacock.
Well, I'm going to finish the body I'm working on right now, Gretch. And then we're going to move into some of the tips and tricks stuff that we want to talk about, but that'll give you a bit of a chance to catch up on some of the flies that you're tying there. Though I think you're staying right along with me, just about even.
Just about.
One of the things that we did when we were tying for a living, the 10 years we were in Bozeman, that's what we did for a living, was just tie flies. Well, whoever was ahead on their part of the order had to cook dinner. This darn woman sitting next to me, sometimes I swear she would slow down the closer to dinner it got. You know, we never
That's
could prove it.
assuming I like your cooking.
Yeah, that's true. You didn't complain too much.
Oh,
so.
that's true.
Yeah, question, Al, if you're, I know you got, I've seen you tie this fly before, using this technique. Is there any, if you, when you tie other flies, how do you determine the breakdown of work of tasks for each individual? For example, how would you break a mini or a woolly bugger into 2 people tie?
You don't. There are flies that we just did. There is no good break point. The woolly bugger is one you just tie it all the way through yourself, and the person next to you either ties their woolly bugger all the way through, or what we often do is we're fanning feathers back and forth to each other, and I'll be tying the 14s and she'll be tying the 12s or whatever, vice versa, you know, but you get the idea. Whatever we can do to get the job done as fast as we can and with quality work while we're doing it.
Most of the nymphs we tied from start to finish.
Yeah.
I tied for the river's edge. Always tied the George Anderson stonefly. That's a one person fly. I also tied a brassy. It's a version of the brassy, and that was a 1 person fly, obviously. So yeah.
Yeah, so good question, John, and the answer really boils down to it depends.
Yeah. But all of the wolves, the humpies, the parachutes, those we did all those together.
But on the flip side, like a comparadon, I mean, once you had, only thing you had left after you did the wings was to put on the body, so there was no reason to pass it off to your partner. Okay, measure this one for length. Tie it on, roll it up on top, bind it back a ways, 45-degree angle, scissors flat along the shank. Blend those all together, thread hanging in the center, pull up the wing bundle. Up, I got one feather, one hair that went down below. I'll get that. There we go. Okay, wrap this thread up to the base of the wing bundle, and now I'm going to divide and conquer, hopefully. Didn't get a good split on those. All right, that's a better division. 3 turns around the offside wing. And I was going to tell you how we set those wings. You know, I've wrapped up that wing post. You can't really see it because it's white thread on white. But what we do is actually kind of a tent rope sort of a thing. We come from the top of that post and then just like banging the tent rope into the ground. We take a wrap around the hook, and that binds that in place. And now I'll come over here and wrap around the near side, do the same thing 3 turns, wrapping up the tent post, if you will, until I can bring that thread right straight across like that. And I'll put enough pressure on and then anchor it so that wing stands up straight. And I'll just advance my thread in front, tie it off, and then I'll pass this one off to Gretchen, and I'll get ready to do tonight's tip, which is, you know, it's going to be a bit of a task, shall we say, because there's several items and we're just kind of cleaning up a bunch of notes and stuff off of our desk as to things that we wanted to get done this year. Anyway, let me go full screen here, Gretchen. When you need something or want me to pop over there, I can add you or I can full screen you, one of the two.
Well, I'm just going to sit here and tie.
Okay, good. Sounds good. Okay, well, let's get into tonight's tip. Tonight's tip is a new anchor system. Not really. It's one you may not have seen before. Then again, maybe it is. We don't know. but we'll be sharing that with you. And what we're going to do is share, we'll take a fact that we know and see what you think from there. Let me get it up here. Okay, I've got here 2 feathers, the identical feather, tied on twice. The first one is I took and cut off the feather, just like that, so straight across. I mean, it's exactly what you do after you tie a feather on the hook, and take a couple of wraps and then cut off the waist, and then you have to cover up the waist end that's remaining with thread turns, and that's how you come up with the head on your fly. Okay, another way to do it. What you can do is here's 2 feathers with the rachis, the shaft, stem, whatever you want to call it. They're both about the same length. However, I want you to notice that I broke the stem off of the other ones, and what it leaves behind is these longer fibers. Well, what does that mean? Oh, do you have something you want to do, Gretchen?
Well, I had told him I was going to tie 2 feathers at the
Oh.
same time, and I didn't do it. And so I could do it on this one.
Oh, okay, I'll stop. I'll come back to this
I've got them
explanation
right
here in a bit,
here.
and we'll pick it up here at where you have these extra fibers sticking out here.
I had them all set, ready to go.
There you go.
Okay, I tie them on at the same time. Whoops. That didn't work, did it? Boy, that was good demonstration.
Well, of course, we're live on Zoom. What do you expect?
Really, they had sat there for a while, and you know, feathers have a life of their own, I swear. Okay.
You did it to make me feel better, Gretchen.
Yes, of course we did.
That's right. It was interesting when we started tying commercially. I had just started tying again, and I had a lot of learning to do. It was kind of interesting. This brings back memories. Okay, so I just take a hold of them. Let's get my thread out of the way here. Right on the front here, dear.
Yes, I see that. I knew you were going to be doing that, so I wanted to struggle a little bit.
Yeah. Sometimes, you know, we would be tying and I'd have to say, "Ow, you're not leaving me enough room in the front."
Gretchen,
Yeah.
one of the things I've noticed that you do when you're tying both of them on, and I do it too to keep constant tension on both of those feather shafts, is you slide your fingers down the shaft as you
Yes,
wrap.
Yes, I do. I do.
And that
Thank
is a
you.
way to maintain the same tension on both of them, because quite often, if you don't do that, one stem is always looser than the other.
Yeah, I guess it's something I learned to do and didn't even realize I was doing it. Isn't that interesting? Thanks for pointing that out. I tied them off together, and there they go.
Are you tying those off the way we saw, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, so that
Yeah.
there's no crazy feathers out the front that we've got to snip off?
Yeah.
Correct. That's what you did. Yes.
Could
Call
you
it a
demonstrate that again later on, maybe?
Okay, I'll do that in a minute here, because what I'm going to leave when I go back to my demonstration is I'll do that then, because it's a good lead into the one we're going to be doing here.
Thank you very much.
I'm a little awkward with it, because I haven't been tying a lot lately, but it's still just such a clean head that you get.
And the truth of the matter is, whenever the situation allows, we've doglegged the hackle for a lot more years than we've done the tie wrap. However, the tie wrap is something that we would always just keep in our back pocket in case we really needed to make an extra good looking fly for something that was going to be mounted under glass or whatever. And that's how it often got used until here lately. We've been using it quite a bit more.
Yeah,
It's called the
takes a
Beatty
little-
wrap.
yeah, takes a little more skill, I think, and so I don't know. Is it faster or slower?
It's not as comfortable. It's probably just as fast, but I mean, when you've doglegged the hackle for 40 years and then you start doing something else and you've only been doing it for 10, you still got that 40 years of memories in there. And anyhow, Paul, I can
It's
see
called
that the doggone sun is shining through on the window. I'm going to have to do some work on that.
It's called the Beatty wrap.
The baby rat.
Okay, whatever you want to call it, whatever. Anyhow, let's get over here and anyhow,
Oh, there's another fly. Okay.
where I was is the cutoff, the shaft is about the same length on both of these. However, we have remaining these little tips out here. And they can be most helpful. I'll show you how. We'll set that aside for just a moment. And Neil had asked for a replay on the tie wrap. I'll just take this as this is something that I do mock-ups very often, and that's what I was doing this afternoon. And let me grab my orange thread. Not that I just like using this orange thread. This is orange thread that I shared with all of you here a few weeks ago, where it had, well, it's here. Here's the other end of it. It had gone bad, and we had all of this bad hair. It's a thread that I pulled off the spool, and now I'm down using off of that spool. I've been using on it for quite a while, and I've still going to have quite a bit of use out of that. So anyhow, let's see here. I want to, I don't need a lot of hair feather. Okay, Neil, I'll just tie that feather on right there. And let's trim off the waist. All right. Typically, when we wrap our thread, we get moved forward here a bit. There we go. We wrap our hackles forward to meet the thread, or in some instances, we'll use the Bachman method, where we will let the thread hang right next to the feather, and then the weight of the bobbin will kind of make tight turns in the hackle. The way most people tie off their hackle, I've wrapped forward to meet the thread. They tie it off with a couple of turns, and then they cut it off. And now I want you to remember, if I were to reach in and cut that off, here's what I'm covering up. The one on the left there, and that grizzly one on the left. That's what I have to try to cover up. And it's no wonder sometimes you have trouble making a nice clean head. So let me set that aside. Let's get back here now, and I'm going to unwrap that thread. Got one more to unwrap. There we go. I'll just rewrap this hackle. Now I've wrapped forward to meet the thread. Let me just take a hackle pliers so I don't lose this, and let it hang there right next to the thread. But I want you to notice hackle to the back, thread to the front. Let's talk about the different parts. We've got the thread, the hackle, and the objective. And the objective is to hide the hackle, not out here where we have to hide it with our delicate thread head, but we're going to hide the stubs back here in the hiding place, we call it.
Al, remember, you wrap the material in the direction where you want it hidden.
Right. Thank you.
That's just I couldn't understand what he was saying until we put it in those terms. So
Okay.
describe it that way.
You wrap the feather around the thread so that it comes on top of the thread pointing at the hidey hole. And the hidey hole is back here in the hackle. So now let's just take one more turn around the thread pointing at the hidey hole. Now I'm just going to bring that thread up and over along with the thread, and it's bound in place.
Al, what difference does it make if you wrap over the thread or behind the thread?
I can't even.
Let me answer that.
Oh, behind. Oh, I can answer that. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Gretchen.
Well,
Go ahead.
To say behind the thread and in front of the thread, for me, becomes very confusing. If you're hiding something with the hidey hole, as Al calls it, to the left, then you want to wrap your material so it forces the thread back in that direction.
And the material is forced back in that direction.
The material is forced back in that direction.
And if you do what you say, it forces it the other way, and it's going to end up in the head.
No, you're doing a clockwise wrap, is what we're doing.
It depends on it. I did a clockwise wrap here. If I wanted to keep it, if I wanted it to go the other way, then I'd have to do a counterclockwise wrap. And again, that all just depends on where the hidey hole is and where the thread is.
What I found worked for me was to sit down with a great big old hook and just get a throwaway hackle and start tying it on, and then wrapping it and doing it both ways to see what happens. And that picture then stayed in my mind about which way I needed to wrap it. Somehow the words just weren't making it for me. I had to play with it by wrapping it right way, wrong way, Okay,
well, now I'm going to break off this hackle. And remember these fibers here that whenever you break off the rachis, the remaining fibers there are there. It's the same thing here on this feather that I'm going to break off right now. Those fibers are still sticking up there, barbs, whatever you want to call them, sticking up there, camouflaging the fact that you broke off the rachis there. So, and you can see that you just got a nice clean head with no bumps in it in any way, shape, or form. And you can do that like I did with a single feather, and you saw Gretchen do it just a moment ago with wrapping 2 feathers. I've not tried it with 3. I don't know what, probably would work, but I have not tried it.
John Wright wanted to know if I was tying with a Dan Weiss, and the answer is yes.
Thank you very much for showing that again, Al.
Yeah, for sure.
Al, this is Michael. When you're talking about the hidey hole, what are you referring to?
Okay, let me get my...
The wrapped hackle.
Okay, the hackle, right there. The hackle I'm pointing at, the stuff that's been wrapped.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the hidey hole.
Okay, thank you.
Because if you tied off the feather in the traditional way, the waist is going to go there. If you tie it off using the tie wrap, the waist goes there.
Got it. Thanks.
One of the things that's kind of nice to dress that up a little bit too, because one of the things about the tie wrap or the dog leg, either one, will sometimes misalign your fibers just a little bit. Anyway, now we're going to go into the reel tip for tonight. I think I'll just get this out of the way and start with a clean hook. All right, put on some thread. Alrighty. Now I'll just get another feather out here. One of these brown ones. Looks like that's a pretty nice long one. The other 2 I grabbed were a little bit short, and I was having a hard time holding on to them. But it's really tough to put 2 feathers into a hackle pliers, and well, I have to just about do that by hand. But anyway, I'll bind that down. And now we're going to use the advantages, or we're going to discover the advantages, if you will, of the extra fibers sticking out here, the extra barbs. beyond that rachis that was broke off, rather than having them cut off along with the rachis. All right, so let's start wrapping. All right, coming right up on here. And now I'm just going to tie it off per normal. And I'm going to throw an extra turn in there because I just don't want this thing breaking and coming apart live on Zoom. So now I'm going to take and break the rachis. And I want you to notice now, you can see these barbs sticking out here. Well, I am going to unturn that one turn of thread. And remember how we dogleg the hackle? Well, we're going to dogleg those hackle barbs. Now that forces them back in there, and I think if you look real careful there, I think we tilted. Okay, you can see those 3 or 4 barbs kind of poking right back in here at an angle. But what you want to do to correct for them is dress these forward with your hand, get them all standing right, and then drop your glue in there and let it set. And what it'll do is it'll take those fibers and keep them in a perpendicular to the hook shank. And I want you to notice that this is very similar in profile to the tie wrap. Why is that? Because you're not trying to cover up that stub and creating a big ugly head covering up the stub. It just doesn't, when you break it off, it cleans up a heck of a lot better, breaks off a heck of a lot cleaner than cutting it off.
You know, I sure wish I knew how to do that when I did my first order of flies.
Yeah, that would be helpful. It's
one of the things that happened, we were still working for General Telephone, and I was on a temporary assignment at headquarters, and so they rented me an apartment. So in the evenings, Al made a table for me, and in the evenings I sat and tied an order of flies. That was my first order, and I fought the hackle in the head. So I mean, it was very frustrating learning experience. Somehow I missed the thing on dog-legging him back. And finally, and I was also tying with chenille, and I finally puzzled out to take the fuzz off and tie down the inner string. So yeah.
okay. Well, anyway, any questions before I go into the next item in handling your binding things down and handling your waste? Okay. Well, good. Okay, I'm going to go now, and what we're looking at is a mock-up of a fly. All I have is a wet hackle on, and actually the body is 3 different. I did a presentation earlier this week to another organization, and that's this right here, but for doing the same thing for peacock. You know, in other words, it's just a demonstration fly, and then I needed to have something to demonstrate what I'm going to do right now, and so I used it. So it's not any particular pattern. It's just got 3 little applications of peacock there, and then I put a wet style hackle collar on.
I think it's a big flying ant.
You're right. It's a big flying ant, kind of like your big flying ant there.
Yeah.
But anyway, all that is the ringneck pheasant church window feather. Makes kind of a nice looking soft hackle, doesn't it? But anyway, what I was going to do is Gretchen and I have done many dozens of zonkers on the commercial order thing. And one of the things that we early on struggled with was getting a nice delicate head. And we really pride ourselves in sending flies out to our customers that have light, delicate heads, no matter how much material went into the fly. And doing rabbit strip wings is not always conducive to a nice delicate head unless you do this. Now let me show you what I've done here. I've just got a strip cut, and I cut it to a real fine point. All right, got the fuzz up on the, or the fur is up on this side. So I'm just gonna go ahead and tie that down, but first thing I'm gonna do is take these fibers here, dress them forward. Like that. Now I'm just going to ignore those fibers and go ahead and tie the very tip of that hide in place. Now I'm going to bend those fibers right back over. And build my thread head on a zonker. And I think you'll probably agree that that's a pretty decent looking thread head on that zonker. And a lot cleaner than you would get if you'd left the hair the way it is. Now, the question is it as strong? Well, let's find out. Let me, all right, now I'm going to just back away a little bit, and I'm going to just pull on this, and I'm going to see how much it takes for me to pull that out. I'm going to have to tighten my jaws. Maybe I can move it into the jaws a little different. Okay, well, anyway, you can see it holds. And so you can have a good tough fly while still maintaining a nice delicate head, even on a zonker. Any questions? Well, this was a bust. It turns out that everybody already knew all this stuff. I can see that. Anyway, okay, so we will remove the spotlight and
I got one question. I was late getting started here, but when you were doing the red part of the body, is that floss or was that heavy thread?
That is Danville stretchy nylon.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank
So
you.
it's this stuff
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah, give it to me here, and I'll just wrap it on a hook here so you can see. It's the stuff that I'll tell you the story about this while I'm getting this hook in the vise. Gretchen found this stuff in about 93 in the Bernina sewing store in Bozeman. It only came in 1,000-yard rolls at the sewing store. So she brought one home. And I said, boy, this is some neat stuff, but Jesus, what are we going to do with 1,000 yards? Well, we found out it would take a felt tip marker really well. So we tied a bunch of flies out of it. It was a light tan color, and you could take just about any color of felt tip marker, touch it to the body, and it would change it to that color. It was really great stuff. So we called Danville and said, guys, we've discovered something. You've got to put this on the market. They said, yeah, send it to us. We did. Next year, guys, you've got to put this on the market. It's really great stuff. Well, 5 years later, anyway, it came out in 95. And it's this stuff right here. And they called it stretchy nylon. If you get it from the Uni Corporation, they call it Unistretch. Isn't it Unistretch? Anyway, something like that. So what I want you to notice, though, is that it is just multi-fibrous. There's no top, bottom, sides, or anything. It's just a bundle of fibers kind of held together. And when you pull it tight, it makes a nice, smooth floss that never gets a twist in it, or never gets an evident twist in it, though there are twists there.
And what I like about it is you could put it using your bobbin holder. It works so much better.
So now you're gonna put on a nice, smooth floss body.
Did
just straight out of the bobbin. Pardon me?
That works similar to that woolly nylon.
Well, that's basically what it is, isn't it?
Because that's what you use when you do the underbodies on salmon flies and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I think you can see that that's a fairly smooth body.
It's gorgeous.
And it came straight off the bobbin. So you can see my bobbin is still twisting, but it doesn't show up as twisted thread on the bobbin.
We have big spools of silk from the 40s. That was my dad. We have black, red, white, amber, and yellow, I think. Anyway, we don't mess with that nylon or that silk. This turns out better for me than the silk. The silk is tough to work with unless you.
Yeah, because what the woolly nylon, I think, is leans more towards the silk. So it doesn't stay together just like that does. It
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
flares
Could be.
out, you know?
Yeah.
Gretchen, this is Bill. Do they still make that thread in like I'll say it from the Bernina sewing thread, or is it all just now just a specialty thread used in fly tying, that stretchy nylon?
I'm
It's woolly
sorry.
nylon. Sorry,
Say
guys,
that
it's
again.
It's nylon stretch overlocking thread is what it is.
Okay, well, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
You can still go to the Marina sewing store and get a 1,000-yard roll of it. And if you do, make sure it's a light color so you can use felt tip markers to color it.
Some people use it in their embroidery machines, like their brother or their whatever Bernina embroidery machines, and it works pretty cool. I haven't had real good luck with it, but I've seen some stuff done with it. It's pretty cool.
I'll just ask the wife because she does a lot of sewing. So thank you. I appreciate the help.
Okay, folks, it's time for sharing where all of you show all of us what you have going on. Oh, and the Royal Wulff tied by Gretchen and Al. Oh, you got the two parts. Good job. You're hired.
Thank you.
Yes, wonderful. Wonderful. Anybody else have something to share? I think Michael Paradas has got something for us tonight. Is that all you had, Evelyn?
Yes, that's it for today.
Okay, Michael, let's get here. Spotlight for everyone. Okay, Michael.
This is just a reminder to you.
The ultimate, hair is a difference. There's a story that goes with that. And in fact, Gretchen and I were on the team that designed that. And in fact, let me do a side by side here. Add, along with Michael, add spotlight. And in fact, this is a bundle of the same thing that he was showing. There's the back of it. And anyway, as the story goes, it was in 1987, a guy by the name of Dick Tallor was scheduled to teach a hair wing class at the conclave. And he got sick just before the conclave in West Yellowstone. And a week before the event, I got a call from a friend of mine. He says, "We know you tie hair wings and we're in trouble. Our regular teacher is not going to be able to show up. Can you take a class of 20? Okay. And so I did. And it was also my first time teaching at a national level. And the people, it was well received. We should say that. It seemed to be so well received that when I got home, the phone started ringing. And the first place I went to was Casper, Wyoming, to a club down there that wanted to learn about hair. And so anyway, and I ended up going to about 10 or 12 different clubs as a result of that one. But the Casper, Wyoming one is important because when they picked me up at the airport, they said, "Well, tomorrow the class starts. There's a gentleman that wants to join us that doesn't know how to tie flies. He only wants to know how to judge hair." I said, "I'm happy with anyone, but I'll tailor the class to the average skill set of the people, not the guy that's going to be learning how to judge hair." Well, the guy was Steve Knert, and at that time, his business in Lander, Wyoming, was called the Tannery.
Oh,
Well, it wasn't too long after he left Casper and went back that he changed the business from the Tannery to Rocky Mountain Dubbing / Tannery. But anyway, back to the story. He wanted to learn how to judge hair for a fly tire. And I ran him through an intense course with everyone, like I always do on a hair wing class. And then in the motel room in the evenings afterwards, a real crash course when I found out he was wanting to bring this product on the market. Well, anyway, we became fast friends, and we helped him understand hair, what part of the body the best hair comes for, all the different things. And the hair is a difference was the idea that he came up with as a result of the training that we started in Lander and went over for the next couple of years. And anyway, so he came out with that, and it was very well received, and Gretchen and I had a little bit to do with it, and I think we've got a pattern or two on the scattered throughout it somewhere in there. And
We open it. I mean, let me see one of those.
yeah.
Yeah, here's
It's in one of the co-authors on that. Mike?
So if you take a look at this, inside is where you get into the instructional stuff. So you can see that it talks about all the different hairs, and then it talks on the back too. On the back, you've got moose hair and calf body hair. And there's a little narrative that goes with it all. It talks about spinning hair. So it's actually four pages.
there's a tied by Al Beatty.
Yeah, and then there's another one on the back that's by me too, and that was the coastal deer, and that was on the muddle may that you'll see there towards the bottom.
Could you show
But
that?
anyway,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Could you just show the
there.
front page? The front page of that flyer?
Yeah.
I've seen that.
So
So
where's
it's still
the other
published?
copies?
Who are the authors?
Steve Knirk, Al Beatty, Terry Griffins of London, several others.
Okay, great, beautiful. Where can I get a copy?
I don't know. They used to be supplied by Rocky Mountain Dubbing to their various customers, and understand their various customers was not the general public, but it was the fly shops and suppliers like Wapsie and so forth that they supplied to. So I don't know whether it's even available anymore. I mean, you got to understand this was made in like '93, I think.
So do we have we totally lost Knert? I mean,
No, I heard from him the other day.
we could ask him.
Yeah.
Well, we'll contact Steve and find out where it was produced. We do have a couple of extras, but that's all.
It's 30 years old.
Yeah, for sure. But
Well,
anyway,
I do have a tip that came up Wednesday night, if you want it.
I do. Just a minute. Let me get myself out of here. We want you on the spotlight. Yeah. What is it, Michael?
We were tying a fly that CDC fly that had to be trimmed at the end of the process, and the damn CDC just slips through my fingers when I try to pluck it to a certain length. And what I came up with was using nitrile exam gloves that I get from Costco that have textured fingertips, and just gripping the CDC tips with the nitrile glove, and it just plucks off real easy.
That's, I mean, hey, I've experienced the same thing that you have, and just found it a real frustration. Sometimes I could do okay with a thumbnail or something like that. The nitrile gloves, well, remember that.
Yeah, you can get them. You can get 400 of them at Costco for $30.
Yeah.
Oh dear, I don't think we can afford that. Jesus.
Yeah, Al, this is Jerry. Hey, on that flex floss, I like to use it for bodies. And when you use it for bodies, you can change the different color copper wires, and it really makes really neat nymphs. And it also makes a really nice body hanging down for emergers. But the copper really, you put a different color, some of the copper that you can get is, especially out of transformers and that, some of it's got that real red lacquer on it. Some of it is just, just the real light copper. And I find that can really, really make really neat looking bugs with that stuff as a body.
Awesome. Thank you,
And
Jerry.
I also have here a hair hackling book. Yeah. So it's a hair hackling book, and it's I met him in Seaside, Oregon. He traveled here from the UK, and it shows all the different tricks for doing hair hackling.
Very good. That's where I met Gordon, and in fact, my booth at that show was right next to his booth, so we got to be very, very good friends during the time there, and that was a very special time for me. And I still have my copy of the book is in there somewhere in the
that book still available? Do you know, Jerry?
I don't know this. I mean, I got this. I was doing my my hair hackling with my possum hair nymph. And he says, I'm the only one that he's ever seen do hair hackling since he was running around. And so he made me come over to his booth I sat with him for almost 2 hours. And I really learned some good tricks from him with it. So it was awesome. So
Gretchen,
Great.
yeah,
this
but
is Kathy.
thank you for the year. Thank you for the year. Really appreciate everything that you guys have put out for the year. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, you guys
Somebody
have a
else?
good
This is
summer.
Kathy, and I just looked on my phone and it looks like that hair hackle tying by Gordon McKenzie is available on Amazon.
Oh, great.
Thank you, Kathy.
Gretchen, before you do that, can I just add one more thing about the Flex Floss?
Sure.
I use that for underbodies for large dry flies. So for size 10 and 8 flies, I'll use that. It's a real quick way to build up the body, and then I use a light dubbing over the top of that, and I can crank those out a lot faster rather than continually putting a whole bunch of dubbing on thread and trying to make a size 8 dry fly.
Do you try to match the dubbing and the body material, or the flex material?
Yeah, I use a lot of the olive color. I'm tying green drakes, so a size 8 and a 10 green drake, I'll use a olive flex floss, and then a similar color. It doesn't have to be exactly the same color, but it just needs to be close.
Sure.
Sure. Thank you, John. Go ahead.
We're in the thralls of the salmon fly hatch on the Deschutes River, and my husband has been very successful. And I tie a version of the Clark's Lady Stone. The material is what Lee Clark taught me to use. So this is the fly. Let's see if I can get up here where you can see it. Can you see it close enough?
Yeah.
I can see that fine. It looks like you've got a tail on your version of a Clark Stone.
No.
Yes, because Eric helped Lee name the Clark Stone,
Yeah.
the Clark Lady Stone, which he just sold to Wapsie, by the way, that they're making that fly now. But if you look at the hackle involved, it's really a badger looking stuff. See that color?
Yep.
So it has a black inner part to the hackle. So what Lee was telling me was that if you put the representing the sac, the female sac, and then the under wing, he doesn't have anything that's like this now because he ran out of the variegated. So I take 2 colors of his Clark's yarn and I mix it. So it creates this orange and yellowish underwing. And then you make the wing itself really, really fluffy and big, like you almost want to spin it. And they're slaying them on the Deschutes.
Wonderful.
So I have been doing for Eric now for about 3 years. And when I changed it to Lee's version, he's been very successful with it.
Good. Give me my best.
I'll be teaching it this August at our.
That's what I wanted you to talk about. Was you've got an August class coming up, don't you?
Yes, it's every Saturday in August. One of the days is going to be a Friday, and that's the day that you and Gretchen are going to be our guest teachers. But it's an all-day affair. We start at 10 o'clock in the morning, tie until noon, take a break, and then tie another couple hours after that, more if we want to stay. So it's a hybrid class, and we're going to have in-person, face-to-face, and a big screen that's going to be set up so you can Zoom it or you can be here in person, and it's $5 at the door, and come on in, sit down and tie, and we're going to have a really good time on this all-day affair. So it'll be the second, third, and the first, second, third, fourth Saturday, except for the one Friday we're going to make it, we'll bump it to Friday that you'll be teaching. Because
Correct.
Saturday is the Oregon Council annual meeting, and there'll be a whole bunch of people here too. That's what we got.
Sherry, thank you so much. Anyone else have something that they want to share?
This is Kathy. I just wanted to add to what Sherry said, and I wanted to make sure everybody realizes that all the cool kids are going to be tying along.
It's a tie along, not just a demo. And Kathy's going to be here, by the way.
All right.
Yeah. So
Tie
you
along.
actually will tie along, tie the fly, then tie along, and you can tie as many as you want, and all the materials are supplied for you. And I'm gathering materials for Al's flies that Al and Gretchen are going to tie. So be here or be square. We have lots of camping spots.
That's it for this week and for this season. So for now, it's a wrap until next time, be about October. Look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for joining us.